Let's bring in Joe Siracusa, who's the Dean of Global Futures at the Faculty of Humanities at Curtin University. He joins us now from Perth, Australia. Good to have you back with us, Professor. Let's start with the G7 stance on Ukraine. It's really no surprises there that those 7 nations are all seemingly united when it comes to tougher sanctions on Russia. But in effect, what effect will that have on Vladimir Putin going forward? Because he does seem to be doubling down on his war in Ukraine.
Good afternoon, Oscar. Look, I don't want to disturb anybody, but the sanctions regime has sailed. They don't work. At best, sanctions only work 40% of the time. Vladimir Putin has been able to resist all the sanctions. All the sanctions in the world issued by the G7 isn't going to save Ukraine from its fate. And the fate will be a ceasefire and some kind of a deal with Russia, where they're going to lose the Donbass, the Crimea, and a few other places. And look, this regime change, or this regime sanctions talk, and this is just about the status quo. This is to give the G7 the impression there is nobody coming to save Ukraine. Okay, this is what I get out of these things, and they're sort of walking that fine line between agreeing to Anthony Blinken, and Blinken's always going on about what Russia and China have to do. Blinken, by the way, reminds me of a chaplain on a pirate ship. No one's really listening to him, and he keeps talking about all these human rights violations. The Russians don't care about that. The Chinese don't care about it. As far as they're concerned, these areas are in their respective spheres of influence, and that's really how the G7 recognizes it at the end of the day. I think the problem here is for nations like Belarus, 10 million under, well, they're really a client state of Russia, and if they bring, if it makes good his claim to bring tactical nuclear weapons on their soil, they may have to pay a heavy price for it. So, these third nation problems are more important than what's going to happen to Russia and China, because nothing's going to happen to Russia or China. It might happen to the third nations.
Let's talk about Taiwan, because the G7 foreign ministers also devoted some time to discussing that issue there and the ongoing Chinese threat. It seems that they're perhaps more concerned that Beijing will take a more aggressive posture sometime in the near future. I mean, is there anything that the G7 nations can do to deter China from perhaps acting on Taiwan?
I think they did today, Oscar. I mean, they reminded Taiwan that there's a one China policy that they adhere to. The G7, nor do the Americans, want to hear about Taiwan declaring its independence. It's not on. Only, I think, 12 nations in the world recognize Taiwan as an independent sovereign state. So in that sense, I think the G7 quietly and slightly faintly reassured China that as long as they don't go in, and as long as Taiwan plays by the rules, they can continue to do what they're doing. I think the only pressure on China right now to do anything about it is the fact that the number of American politicians resist recognizing that very bright red line for Taiwan. And, they continue to offer support where they shouldn't be, in contrast to national foreign policy and the like. But I think the message to China is just cool it. And the message to the Taiwanese is you can't declare independence. And, of course, what China's really concerned about is they don't give a damn about Taiwanese independence. They're worried about Taiwan having an independent foreign policy, which is adverse to theirs. This is what they do not want the Taiwanese to put foreign troops to pose an attack or a threat one day to the mainland. So this all coded talk. They just don't want them to have a foreign policy that is at odds with Beijing, and that's fair enough. That's how things work. If the Chinese showed up in Puerto Rico and decided to defend the Puerto Rican independence movement, let me tell you, we'd be at war with China on Monday morning.
Okay, Professor Joe Siracusa, we'll have to leave it there, but great to get your analysis as always. Thank you.
Thank you.